The first encounter. The Varric Empire had ruled the galaxy peacefully for centuries. They believed themselves to be the pinnacle of civilization, advanced, intelligent, and cultured. For the Varric, war was an ancient relic, something their species had left behind long ago. But everything changed when their long-range scanners picked up a mysterious signal from a planet they had long ignored. It was called Earth, a death world by intergalactic standards. Planets like Earth were considered too dangerous for life. Violent weather, shifting tectonic plates, and countless predators made them unsuitable for most intelligent species. Yet somehow, this death world buzzed with activity, signals of advanced communication and technology. Curiosity turned into concern. The Varric High Council sent a small team of scouts to investigate. Their orders were simple: observe, collect data, and avoid detection. When the scouts arrived in Earth's orbit, they were awestruck. From space, the planet looked beautiful yet chaotic. Storms raged across oceans, volcanoes spewed ash into the sky, and powerful lightning lit up dark clouds. It was a violent dance of nature, and yet humans thrived amidst it. "This cannot be possible," whispered Sarek, the lead scout. He had studied hundreds of worlds, but none like this. Life on such a planet. It defies logic. The team's small ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, cloaked from human detection. They landed in a remote forest, far from major cities. The Varric believed humans were still primitive. After all, no Deathworld species had ever achieved true intelligence, let alone advanced technology. But as the scouts explored, they quickly realized how wrong they were. In the forest, they found strange devices hidden among the trees: cameras, motion detectors, and automated drones. These were not the tools of a primitive species. Sarek's four eyes widened as he inspected one of the drones. Its design was efficient, its movements almost lifelike. "How can they build such machines?" asked Jorith, another scout. His voice trembled. "On a world like this?" Sarek didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for silence. They moved deeper into the forest, following faint signals that led them toward a human settlement. What they saw next left them speechless. A sprawling city rose from the horizon, glittering with lights. Massive skyscrapers reached for the sky, and vehicles zipped through the air and on roads below. Humans moved with purpose, their faces lit with determination. "These are not primitives," Sarek muttered. "They are builders, thinkers, survivors." The scouts observed from a distance, recording everything. But their careful mission took a dangerous turn when one of the younger scouts, Myra, stumbled upon a hidden human defense system. She accidentally triggered a sensor embedded in the ground. A low hum filled the air. Birds scattered from the trees, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. "What did you do?" Sarek hissed, his voice sharp with fear. Before Myra could respond, a sleek black drone emerged from the shadows. It was small, no larger than a bird, but its presence was terrifying. Its red eyes scanned the area, locking onto the Varric team. "Run," Sarek shouted. The scouts sprinted through the forest, but the drone pursued them relentlessly. It moved faster than any machine they had encountered, weaving through trees with precision. "This cannot be happening," Jorith panted as they reached their ship. "It's just one drone." But the drone wasn't alone. Dozens more appeared, surrounding their ship. The Varric activated their cloaking device, but the drone seemed to see right through it. "Activate the shields," Sarek commanded, his voice shaking. The drones didn't attack directly. Instead, they began disabling the ship's systems one by one. Lights flickered, engines sputtered, and the controls froze. It was as if the drones were toying with them, showing their power without delivering a killing blow. "This is a warning," Sarek realized. "They're telling us to leave." With no other choice, the Varric scouts surrendered. The drones backed off, hovering silently as if waiting for instructions. Moments later, a human voice crackled through their ship's comm system. "You're trespassing on Earth. Identify yourselves." The voice was calm but firm. It was not the voice of fear or panic. It was the voice of someone in control. Sarek hesitated, then responded, "We mean no harm. We are explorers from the Varric Empire." There was a pause before the human voice replied, "Explorers? Then you should know better than to trespass on a death world." The line went dead, and the drones disappeared into the forest as quickly as they had come. The Varric scouts managed to repair their ship and escape, but the encounter left them shaken. As they left Earth's orbit, Sarek stared at the blue-green planet on the view screen. "This is not just a death world," he said quietly. "It is something far more dangerous, and I fear we have only seen a glimpse of their true might." The team returned to the Varric Empire, carrying not just data but a warning. Earth was no ordinary world, and humans were no ordinary species. For the first time in centuries, the Varric felt fear of what they had awakened on the death world. The human response. The Varric scout ship drifted silently through the black void of space, far from Earth's surface, but not far enough to escape human attention. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Sarek sat at the command console, his hands trembling slightly as he replayed the audio message from Earth's defense forces. "You should know better than to trespass on a death world." The voice echoed in his mind. It was not filled with anger or hostility, but with certainty, a quiet confidence that unnerved him. Deathworld species weren't supposed to speak like that. They weren't supposed to know they were dangerous. Sarek turned to his crew. "Prepare the ship for departure. We can't stay here any longer." But before his crew could act, the ship's systems flickered. A strange signal began weaving through their comms, encrypted, precise, and undeniably human. "What is that?" Joreth asked, his voice tight with fear. Sarek's eyes narrowed. "They're scanning us." "No, they're controlling us." As if in response, the ship's engines powered down. Outside the viewport, a massive shape emerged from the shadows of Earth's moon. A sleek, black vessel, far larger than any Varric ship, glided toward them. It had no markings, no signs of aggression, but its mere presence radiated dominance. The human ship stopped just a few hundred meters away. Its hull shimmered, revealing hidden weapons that pulsed faintly with energy. The message was clear: leave or be dismantled. A new voice crackled over the comms. This one was colder, more authoritative. "Unknown vessel, you are now under Earth's jurisdiction. Power down all systems. Any attempt to flee will be met with force." Sarek's heart pounded. He had no intention of testing the human's resolve. "Comply," he ordered. The ship's lights dimmed, and all systems fell silent. Moments later, the human vessel extended a docking arm, locking onto the Varric scout ship. A faint hum filled the air as the connection sealed. Sarek felt his breath catch. They were being boarded. The airlock hissed open, and a group of humans stepped inside. They were clad in black armor, faces hidden behind sleek helmets. Each carried a compact weapon, though they remained lowered at their sides. A tall figure stepped forward, removing his helmet. His face was weathered but calm, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through Sarek's composure. "I am General Hayes of the Terran Defense Force," the man said, his voice steady. "Identify yourselves." Sarek swallowed hard and stood. "I am Sarek, lead scout of the Varric Empire. We meant no offense. We came to observe. Nothing more." Hayes studied him in silence for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, the human general smiled. "You picked the wrong planet to observe, Sarek." His words carried no malice, only truth. Sarek's gaze flickered toward his crew. "Your technology, your defenses, they far exceed what we expected." Hayes crossed his arms. "We've had to adapt. Earth isn't exactly forgiving, and neither is the galaxy." Sarek hesitated. "You're aware of how dangerous your world is." Hayes chuckled softly. "We've been aware for thousands of years. Survival is in our blood." Before Sarek could respond, Hayes gestured for his soldiers to lower their weapons. "Relax. We're not here to harm you. But I do have one question. Sarek tensed. What is it? Hayes' eyes hardened. Why now? Why send scouts after all this time? The Varric leader shifted uncomfortably. Your planet's signals. They'd grown stronger. The High Council became curious. Hayes nodded slowly, as if expecting that answer. Curiosity can be dangerous. Suddenly, one of Hayes' soldiers whispered something into his ear. Hayes' brow furrowed, and he fixed Sarek with a sharper gaze. We detected your ship's cloaking signature days ago, Hayes said calmly. You weren't as hidden as you thought, but we let you land. Sarek stiffened. Why? Hayes stepped closer, lowering his voice. To see how far you'd go. A cold chill ran through the Varric scout. These humans, they had known all along. They had allowed the Varric to stumble into their traps. You underestimated us, Hayes continued. That was your first mistake. Your second was assuming we didn't notice. Sarek felt the weight of those words. He had studied countless species, but never had he faced a race so unapologetically prepared. Hayes straightened, his tone softening. But that's not why we're having this conversation. You're lucky we value diplomacy. The general glanced at the human ship docked beside them. Your crew will be allowed to leave. Consider this a warning and a lesson. Sarek's mind raced. This was not how first encounters usually went. Most species either feared or welcomed the Varric. But humans, they stood at the threshold, unwilling to bow, yet also unwilling to start unnecessary conflict. As Hayes turned to leave, he added one final remark. We are not your enemies, Sarek, but if you ever return uninvited, you'll find out why Earth is called a death world. The human soldiers filed out, leaving the Varric in stunned silence. As their ship disengaged from the docking arm, Joreth exhaled deeply. That could have gone worse. Sarek didn't answer. He simply stared out at the blue planet below, now understanding the truth. It wasn't the storms or the predators that made Earth dangerous. It was the humans. Returned to the Varric Empire, the Varric scout ship drifted silently away from Earth's orbit, but the weight of the encounter lingered heavily in the cabin. Sarek sat in the command chair, watching as the blue and green death world shrank behind them. The humans had let them go. An act of mercy Sarek hadn't expected. Yet something about General Hayes' parting words gnawed at him. If you ever return uninvited, you'll find out why Earth is called a death world. Joreth shifted nervously beside him. They could have destroyed us. Why didn't they? Sarek didn't respond immediately. His eyes remained locked on the planet. It was a question he had been asking himself. The humans clearly had the technology, the capability, but they chose restraint. Finally, he spoke. Because they didn't see us as a threat. That's what worries me. The Varric ship slipped into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth behind. But even as the stars blurred past the viewport, the image of Earth's defense systems, the drones, and the massive black warship haunted Sarek's thoughts. 3 days later, Varric Imperial Capital. The Varric homeworld was the opposite of Earth. Smooth oceans stretched endlessly under calm skies. Towering crystalline cities sparkled in the gentle light of 2 suns. Here, war was a distant memory, and peace had shaped their society for centuries. Sarek's ship descended into the capital spire, the heart of the Varric Empire. The spire rose high into the sky, piercing through clouds and connecting to orbital stations far above the surface. As they docked, Sarek's anxiety grew. The High Council awaited him. Sarek and his crew were led through the grand halls, lined with glowing symbols that told the story of Varric's long history, victories, alliances, and the ascension of their civilization. But as they approached the council chamber, Sarek wondered if today's story would be one of humiliation. The chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a circular room filled with towering figures. The High Councilors, draped in silver robes, sat in a semicircle, their faces calm but curious. Sarek stepped forward, bowing deeply. Honorable Councilors, I bring my report from Earth. The head counselor, an elder named Valen, raised a hand. "You may begin, Scoutmaster Sarek." Sarek hesitated for just a moment before recounting everything. From the moment they landed in Earth's forests to the encounter with General Hayes, every detail was met with silence, the council listening intently. When he finished, Valen's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You are certain of this?" "Yes, Counselor," Sarek replied. "The humans have technology rivaling ours, perhaps even surpassing it." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was not the report they had expected. Earth was supposed to be a curiosity, not a potential rival. Joreth stepped forward, unable to contain himself. "They let us go, Counselor. I believe the humans wish for peace." Valen's gaze shifted to Joreth. Perhaps they saw no need to waste resources eliminating a small scout team. Another counselor, Terran, leaned forward. "Scoutmaster, what is your recommendation?" Sarek straightened. "I advise caution. We must observe them from a distance. Earth's potential is dangerous, but so is provoking them unnecessarily." The chamber fell silent for several moments. Finally, Valen spoke again. "Scoutmaster, your words carry wisdom. However, the Council cannot ignore the implications. If humans are as advanced as you say, it is imperative that we understand their full capabilities. This empire was not built by watching from the shadows." Sarek's heart sank. He had feared this response. "We will send a fleet," Valen declared, "not to attack, but to monitor Earth closely. If they are peaceful, we shall extend the hand of diplomacy. If they are hostile, we will ensure the safety of the Empire." Joreth's eyes widened. "A fleet. With respect, Counselor, that may appear as an act of aggression." Valen's expression softened slightly. "A precaution, nothing more. Scoutmaster Sarek, you will lead the diplomatic arm of this mission. We trust you to ensure no conflict arises, unless necessary." Sarek bowed deeply, though his heart felt heavy. "As you command." 2 weeks later, Earth's orbit. The Varric fleet emerged from hyperspace, their ships sleek and silver, designed for speed and defense rather than war. Sarek stood at the bridge of the lead vessel, watching Earth loom large on the view screen. "Send a message," Sarek ordered. "Announce our presence and request diplomatic talks." Joreth nodded and began transmitting. Moments passed with no response. The silence felt suffocating. Suddenly, the sensors flared. A massive human warship appeared out of the void, not approaching from Earth, but from behind the Varric fleet. Its arrival was silent, but its presence was overwhelming. The comms crackled to life. "This is General Hayes. I told you not to return uninvited." Sarek stepped forward, heart pounding. "General Hayes, we come in peace. The High Council wishes to discuss potential alliances." There was a pause, then Hayes' voice returned, calm but firm. "Fleet or no fleet, Sarek, Earth is not a prize to be claimed." But, on listening, the tension in the room eased slightly, but Sarek knew the balance was fragile. As Earth's warships slowly moved alongside the Varric fleet, Sarek realized that the humans hadn't deployed their full might. This was just another warning, another show of restraint, and perhaps, beneath all the caution, a flicker of opportunity. The mistake. The Varric fleet held position just beyond Earth's atmosphere, floating like silent watchers among the stars. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, but on the bridge of the lead vessel, Sarek kept his focus steady. The humans had not fired, nor had they forced the fleet to retreat. This was a fragile truce, but a truce nonetheless. General Hayes' warship remained stationed nearby, an unmistakable reminder that the humans were watching their every move. It was a vessel unlike any Sarek had seen before, smooth, obsidian black, as if carved from the void itself. No insignia, no bright lights. It was the embodiment of Deathworlder design, efficient, intimidating, and deadly. For 2 days, the Varric waited. No message came from Earth's surface. Diplomacy was slow. On the 3rd day, impatience began to take hold. "They're toying with us," grumbled Captain Varen, one of the younger Varric officers commanding a secondary vessel. His voice crackled through the fleet comms, irritation thick in his tone. "We extend peace, and they respond with silence. How long must we endure this?" Sarek stood at the central console, his hands clasped behind his back. "They will respond when they are ready," he replied evenly. "We are not dealing with a typical species, Captain. I suggest you exercise patience." Varen scoffed. "Or perhaps they mistake patience for weakness. This planet is dangerous, yes, but we command a fleet. They cannot ignore us forever." Sarek narrowed his eyes, but chose not to engage further. Varen's confidence was misplaced. Earth was not the kind of world that bowed to pressure. Sarek had learned that lesson firsthand. But Varen wasn't alone in his frustration. Among the Varric fleet, murmurs of discontent grew. The younger captains, many of whom had never experienced war, believed the humans were simply bluffing, posturing like lesser species. It was the perfect environment for mistakes to happen. Later that evening, as Earth's shadow crept across the planet's surface, the first spark of disaster ignited. Captain Varen's vessel, the Valorous, drifted slightly closer to Earth's orbit, breaching the invisible boundary that Sarek had explicitly ordered his fleet not to cross. It was subtle, just a few hundred meters deeper. But in the language of diplomacy, even the smallest gesture could scream hostility. The Valorous crept closer to one of Earth's orbital defense satellites, its sleek exterior barely visible against the black canvas of space. "Captain Varen, you are dangerously close to their perimeter." Sarek's voice echoed over comms, cold and sharp. "Pull back immediately." Varen's response was laced with defiance. "I am not attacking, Scoutmaster. I am observing. Their defenses are modest." Sarek's jaw tightened. "That modest defense could cripple your ship in seconds. Withdraw now." But before Sarek could issue further orders, the mistake was made. Varen, either by accident or reckless intent, fired a low-powered scan at the satellite. It was harmless by design, merely an analysis beam used to collect data. But to the humans, it was a foreign vessel locking sensors on their defense grid. A bright red flash illuminated the satellite. Seconds later, the Valorous's comms went dark. Sarek's breath caught. "What happened?" "Unknown," Joreth replied tensely. "Their ship, it's been disabled. Powers dropping across all decks." Sarek's eyes darted to the viewport. The Valorous spun slowly, drifting helplessly in space. Then he saw them, small, almost insignificant specks emerging from the darkness. Earth's defense drones. Hundreds of them. The drones swarmed around the disabled Varric vessel, locking onto its hull with magnetic tethers. They didn't fire. They didn't destroy. They simply rendered the ship inoperable, holding it hostage in silence. Then, as if materializing from nothing, General Hayes' warship shifted forward. The sleek vessel hovered above the helpless Valorous, its cannons glowing faintly. A sharp crackle burst through Sarek's comms. Hayes' voice followed, calm but edged with steel. "Scoutmaster Sarek, your fleet has violated our perimeter." Sarek stepped closer to the comm panel. "General, I do not explain. I don't need explanations. I need assurances." Sarek's fists clenched. "You have them. The actions of one captain do not reflect the will of the Varric Empire. I will ensure there are no further incidents." There was a long silence. Then Hayes spoke again, softer this time. "That would be wise. You may retrieve your ship, but if it crosses the line again, it won't come back." The line went dead. Sarek exhaled sharply, ordering his crew to bring the Valorous back to the fleet. As the drones released their grip, the damaged vessel limped to safety. In the aftermath, Captain Varen stood before Sarek in the briefing chamber, his head lowered. "You jeopardize this entire mission." Sarek said coldly, "Do you understand what could have happened?" Varen's voice trembled. "I believed. You believed wrong." Sarek leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Humans don't escalate war with bluster. They escalate it with precision. Had they wanted to, they could have erased your ship the moment you scanned that satellite. Instead, they let you live. But I assure you, Varen, they will not be so forgiving next time. The young captain nodded stiffly. It won't happen again. Sarek dismissed him with a wave. As the chamber door closed, Joreth approached quietly. They handled that with surprising restraint. Joreth remarked, "Perhaps they truly do desire peace." Sarek's gaze lingered on Earth's distant silhouette. Perhaps, or perhaps they're simply waiting to see if we make the next mistake. Humanity's might unleashed. The stars seemed to hold their breath. Earth's defense grid had returned to stillness, but the message was clear. The Varric fleet was tolerated, not welcomed. Sarek sat on the bridge of his vessel, eyes fixed on the Valorous as it drifted back into formation. The damage to the young captain's pride was far greater than the systems of his ship, but Sarek's thoughts weren't on Varen anymore. They were on Earth, and what it was hiding beneath its atmosphere. "Scoutmaster," Joreth's voice broke the silence. "I'm detecting strange movement near the far side of the moon. No ships, but gravitational anomalies." Sarek's gaze sharpened. "Show me." The main screen flickered, revealing the dark outline of Earth's moon. At first, it seemed quiet. Nothing but craters and shadows. But then, faint distortions rippled along its edge, like heat rising off desert sand. "Cloaking?" Sarek guessed, his voice low. Joreth nodded slowly. "Possibly. Whatever it is, the distortion's consistent with gravitational displacement. Something large is there, but it's hidden." Sarek's hands tightened around the edge of the console. Earth wasn't just observing them. It was preparing for something. "Keep monitoring," Sarek ordered. "Do not engage. I want to know what's hiding there without provoking them further." Joreth hesitated. "Scoutmaster, if they're hiding something that large, it could be a warship." "I know," Sarek replied, voice grim. "But the question is..." The distortion shifted. Before Sarek could finish his thought, space itself seemed to ripple as something massive emerged from the lunar shadows. A ship. No, a Leviathan. It was unlike anything the Varric had ever encountered. Larger than any vessel in the fleet, the ship stretched across the stars like a floating city. Its hull was dark, smooth, and eerily quiet, as if designed to absorb light and sound. Along its spine, faint patterns flickered, not lights, but something deeper, like molten veins beneath the surface. The Leviathan moved without sound, as if space bent to its will. Its emergence blotted out part of the moon, and for a brief moment, even the stars seemed to dim. "By the stars," Joreth whispered. Sarek rose to his feet, barely able to pull his eyes from the screen. "What is that?" A soft chime echoed across the bridge. A new signal. "Incoming transmission from the human warship," Joreth reported, swallowing hard. Sarek exhaled slowly. "Patch it through." The screen shifted to reveal General Hayes. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of authority. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was dimly lit, not out of necessity, but by design. The humans didn't need to show force. They were force. "Scoutmaster Sarek," Hayes began, his tone polite, but edged with finality. "You've been a gracious guest, but I believe your fleet has seen enough." Sarek stepped forward, choosing his next words carefully. "We meant no disrespect, General. But your vessel, that isn't a warship, is it?" Hayes allowed a small smile to tug at the corner of his mouth. "Leviathan isn't just a ship, it's a deterrent." Sarek's eyes narrowed. "Deterrent against what?" Hayes met his gaze head-on. "The things that lurk in the dark." The bridge fell silent. Earth built this to defend itself. Sarek asked, though he already knew the answer. Hayes gave a small nod. Earth didn't build one. It built 6. Joreth's breath caught audibly, but Sarek remained still, his mind racing. 6 Leviathans. A fleet like that could erase entire star systems, And yet, here they were, dormant. Earth wasn't expanding. It wasn't conquering. It was waiting. Why show this to us? Sarek finally asked. If you wanted to intimidate us, you could have done so the moment we arrived. Hayes leaned forward slightly. Because I need you to understand something, Scoutmaster. Humanity doesn't seek war. But if war comes to our doorstep, we end it. Quickly. There was no arrogance in his voice, only certainty. Sarek held Hayes' gaze for a long moment. We understand, General. The Varric Empire respects strength, and we respect Earth's right to defend itself. Hayes inclined his head. Good. Then let this be the beginning, not the end. I'll relay your interest in diplomacy to Earth's Council. But until then. The screen flickered, and the Leviathan slowly began to shift, returning to the shadows of the moon. Consider this a reminder. As the transmission ended, Sarek exhaled, his heart still racing. Joreth approached quietly. What do you think? Sarek watched as the Leviathan disappeared into the void. I think Earth just introduced itself to the galaxy, Sarek replied. And I don't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. A surprising offer. The Varric fleet drifted in uneasy silence, their formation tight as the Leviathan vanished once more behind the moon. It left no trace of its existence, no residual energy spikes, no emissions, just the cold emptiness of space. Sarek remained at the command console, his fingers lightly tapping against the surface as his thoughts churned. The sheer size of the human vessel wasn't the most unsettling part. It was the calm, methodical way the humans had revealed it. There were no threats, no displays of hostility. The Leviathan was a quiet reminder, a silent guardian lurking in the shadows. Scoutmaster, Joreth broke the silence, his voice low. We should return to the Empire. This is beyond us. Sarek didn't answer immediately. His gaze lingered on Earth, the distant blue and green orb rotating slowly beneath them. Do you really think retreat is the right choice, Joreth? Sarek asked without looking away. Joreth hesitated. We can't match that level of power. Even if the entire Varric fleet mobilized, we'd lose. Sarek finally turned, his eyes calm. Perhaps, but this was never about victory, Joreth. It's about understanding. Before Joreth could reply, a new signal lit up the comms. Incoming message, directly from Earth. Sarek straightened. Patch it through. The screen flickered to life, but this time it wasn't General Hayes who appeared. Instead, a woman stood at the center of Earth's diplomatic chamber. Behind her stretched the vast halls of Earth's Central Council, a blend of traditional architecture and sleek modern design. She was tall, with streaks of silver in her hair, but her eyes were sharp and unwavering. She wore no military insignia. I am Ambassador Lyra Dawn of Earth's Unified Council, she said, her voice smooth but commanding. Scoutmaster Sarek, the High Council of Earth has deliberated on your presence. I have been authorized to speak on their behalf. Sarek bowed slightly. Ambassador Dawn, I am honored. Lyra's expression softened faintly. General Hayes speaks highly of your restraint. Sarek's brow lifted. That's reassuring, considering the circumstances. Lyra smiled just enough to suggest she appreciated the humor, but her tone quickly returned to a more serious register. The Council has discussed the Varric Empire's intentions. We recognize the Empire's reach across this sector, and we respect the authority your people hold. But Earth is not interested in conflict. If the Empire seeks cooperation, we are prepared to open discussions for trade, scientific exchange, and exploration. Joreth's eyes widened slightly, and a murmur rippled across the bridge crew. Sarek's expression, however, remained measured. Your offer is generous, Ambassador, but I must ask, why now? Lyra's gaze hardened ever so slightly. Because Earth understands what lies beyond the edges of your empire. Scoutmaster, the galaxy is vast, and not all that inhabit it share our desire for peace. Sarek's eyes narrowed. You're speaking of something specific. Lyra didn't flinch. You've seen the Leviathan. It wasn't built as a symbol of power. It was built because we've encountered others who see worlds like Earth not as potential allies, but as resources to be taken. The bridge grew colder at her words. Earth stands ready to defend itself, Lyra continued. But we also understand the value of alliances. The Varric Empire is powerful, but even power can falter if isolated. Sarek folded his arms behind his back, considering her words carefully. There was something unspoken beneath her offer, something Earth wasn't ready to share fully. You're proposing an alliance? Sarek asked cautiously. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. I'm proposing the first step toward one. A gesture of goodwill between our worlds. A choice. Sarek nodded slowly. And what choice would that be? Lyra's voice softened. The Leviathan is not the only ship we're willing to share. Our fleet isn't meant to conquer. It's meant to protect. If your empire is willing, Earth can extend the reach of that protection beyond this system. Joreth's mouth opened slightly in disbelief, but Sarek silenced him with a subtle glance. You're offering to defend our worlds? Sarek asked, his tone skeptical. What does Earth gain from this? Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. Survival. The threats we face. They won't stop with Earth. For a long moment, Sarek studied her. Humans were unlike any species the Varric had encountered. They spoke openly of war, yet carried themselves with restraint. They wielded weapons capable of shattering fleets, but kept them hidden in the dark. And now, they extended protection not out of greed, but necessity. Finally, Sarek inclined his head. I will relay your offer to the High Council, he said carefully. But understand this, Ambassador. Varric does not bend easily. Lyra met his gaze without hesitation. Neither does Earth. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge silent once more. Joreth leaned closer. They want to protect us. That's unexpected. Sarek's eyes narrowed as he stared out at the moon. It's not protection they're offering, he replied quietly. It's preparation. The Leviathan lingered in his thoughts. Earth wasn't just preparing for war. It was preparing for something far worse. And if the Varric Empire accepted Earth's offer, they wouldn't just gain an ally. They'd gain a shield. But shields, Sarek knew, were forged for one reason. Because something was coming. A new era begins. The Varric fleet slipped back into the shadows of space, leaving Earth and its hidden Leviathans behind. The journey home was quiet, but the silence inside the command bridge felt heavier than the vast emptiness beyond the viewport. Sarek sat alone in his quarters, gazing at the holographic projection of Earth slowly rotating before him. It was such an unassuming world, yet the weight it carried rippled across the stars. A death world, but not because of its storms or predators. The humans had changed something in Sarek, shaken his understanding of what strength truly meant. The offer from Earth's ambassador, Lyra Dawn, lingered in his mind. A partnership. A shield. But beneath it all, Sarek felt the faint whisper of something more. A warning. 3 weeks later, Varric Imperial Capital. A High Council chamber was alive with quiet murmurs as Sarek concluded his report. Holographic images of Earth, the Leviathan, and the silent war fleet flickered across the chamber's center. The councilors' faces, usually calm and composed, betrayed hints of unease. Even head councilor Valen's usual stoic expression tightened as he absorbed Sarek's words. So, Earth extends its hand, but not from a place of weakness, Valen murmured. They do not seek tribute or dominance. They seek allies, Sarek confirmed, and protection, not just for themselves, but for the entire sector. Terran, one of the younger counselors, leaned forward. Protection. From whom? Sarek's gaze hardened. I believe they've encountered something. Something we have not. Perhaps a force from beyond the fringes of our charts. Valen's eyes narrowed slightly. You're suggesting Earth has already fought a war we know nothing about. I'm not suggesting, Sarek replied. I'm certain of it. A long silence followed. The flickering image of the Leviathan loomed over the chamber. casting shadows that seemed to stretch further than the light allowed. Finally, Valen leaned back in his chair. This is troubling. The humans possess the technology and the will to fight. They do not boast of conquests, nor do they demand submission. But it's clear, Earth is not waiting for war. They are preparing for one. Murmurs rippled through the council. "What do you propose, Scoutmaster?" Valen asked, his gaze steady. Sarek stepped forward, clasping his hands behind his back. "Accept their offer. Enter this alliance." Terran frowned. "Is that wise? Aligning our empire with a Deathworld species could provoke fear among our neighbors." Sarek's eyes glinted. "Fear will come regardless. Earth is not hiding anymore. The galaxy will learn of them soon enough. I believe it is better to stand with them than against them." Valen's gaze lingered on Sarek, and for a moment, neither spoke. Finally, the head counselor nodded. "The council will deliberate, but your words hold weight, Scoutmaster." Sarek bowed deeply. "I trust the council will see the wisdom in unity." As Sarek turned to leave, Terran called out once more, "And if this alliance draws the enemy's Earth fears to our doorstep?" Sarek paused at the chamber's entrance, his expression unreadable. "Then we will stand together and ensure they regret ever coming." 6 months later, Varick Outer Colony, Xiris System. Xiris was a quiet outer colony along the edges of the Varick Empire's territory. Its skies were golden, its oceans deep and rich with life. The colony thrived in peace, shielded by the strength of the Empire. But peace, Sarek knew, was fragile. From the observation deck of the colony's defense station, Sarek stood alongside General Hayes. Beyond them, the Leviathan hovered in low orbit, casting its long shadow over the colony's surface. The sight of a human warship protecting Varick territory was something Sarek never imagined he would witness. Yet here they stood, side by side. "This world is beautiful," Hayes remarked, his eyes tracing the jagged mountain ranges in the distance. "It is," Sarek agreed, "and we intend to keep it that way." Hayes nodded. "That's why we're here." Sarek turned to face him directly. "What aren't you telling me, General?" Hayes hesitated for just a moment, barely perceptible, but enough for Sarek to catch. "There's been movement," Hayes admitted, "along the edges of the Persine Rift. Ships we can't identify." Sarek's gaze darkened. "Raiders?" Hayes shook his head. "No, they don't operate like raiders. They probe defenses, disappear before our ships can respond. It's like they're testing us." A cold weight settled in Sarek's chest. "You've encountered them before." Hayes met his gaze squarely. "Once. Years ago, we lost ships. Good people. They stopped. But only after we deployed the Leviathans." Sarek exhaled slowly, the pieces falling into place. The Leviathan wasn't just a deterrent. It was a warning flare to something lurking beyond the known galaxy. "Why tell me this now?" Sarek asked. Hayes' expression hardened. "Because your colony sits close to the rift's edge. If they come again, they won't care about our alliances. They'll take whatever they find." Sarek's eyes flicked toward the Leviathan, its silhouette cold and unmoving. "Then let them try." Sarek replied quietly. "They will not find an easy prize." Hayes smiled faintly. "I hoped you'd say that." As the sun dipped beneath the horizon of Xiris, the shadow of Earth's warship stretched long across the colony's surface. A new era had begun, one where Deathworlders stood not as conquerors, but as guardians of the galaxy's fragile peace. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the dark edges of space, something watched and waited.